Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to a mix of r/malicious compliance and r/neighbors from hell. In today's video, OP's neighbor tries to steal his property by planting trees just across the property line. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled The Neighbor. It was 3 AM in the morning and my entire family was asleep after a long ride back to our hometown. While having one of the most pleasant dreams that involved having expensive cakes and fine wine, it was rudely disrupted by the sound of our family's car alarm, and my father went out to check out what happened. Apparently, our neighbor was drunk and had fallen somehow. He hit our car hard enough for the alarm to activate. The entire issue could have been solved with a simple apology and everyone could have gone back to their own lives, but if that happened, I wouldn't be telling this story. Our neighbor was known to be a rather proud person and had loudly declared a few times that no one had ever won an argument against him in the past. So it was not surprising when he decided to push the blame onto my father when he realized everyone in my house was watching him. My father tried to talk things out and ask if he needed help, but the possibility of a peaceful discussion was going down pretty quickly when we saw that our neighbor's face was about as agitated as a fish out of water. None of us knew what was going on because as far as we knew, our car was parked in front of our house and there was nothing wrong with that. It also didn't help that our neighbor looked like a centipede that lost 98 legs and could barely stand properly without trying to use our car as support. Their conversation went something like this. "Father, are you okay? Do you need help?" Neighbor looks around.
"Your car, I fell because of your car."
Father, I'm sorry that happened. Neighbor,
"Move your car or I'm calling the police."
Father, go ahead, my car is in the right place. While we were waiting for the police to arrive, his outbursts had woken up nearly everyone in the vicinity of our small neighborhood, and our neighbor was loudly exclaiming how he was right and how my dad didn't know the rules here because he doesn't live here. My father kept his poker face up all the way till the police came. My neighbor then granted himself a glamorous show of him being arrested in front of everyone with the charge of being a public nuisance for causing damage to someone's property with mischief as well as drunk driving later on after the police found out there was no way he walked home from the bar 30 kilometers away. Although his fall only caused a small dent on the car's boot with slight damage to the paint job which would have been easily fixed, my father instead got $1,000 in payment for damages. We had a great dinner the next day which consisted of expensive cakes and fine wine. And yeah guys, if you have any interesting neighbor stories to share, because I'm always looking for those, please feel free to share them either in the comments or, what is much preferred, on r/ripe stories on Reddit. In case of r/ripe stories on Reddit, there is a good chance that I might read it in a video if you wish. And the next one is titled Entitled Neighbor Thinks He Owns a Piece of My Land. This happened some years ago. We had just bought a fixer-upper house with a rather large garden somewhere in the countryside in Germany. On the first day of me having access to the property, the neighbor N comes to tell me that he had just planted 60 cedar trees as a separation of our two properties. Neighbor also tells me his property extends 1 meter, about 3 feet on my side of the trees. He had done that on purpose so that he could take care of them and they would have room to grow. I thought nothing of it at the time. After about a year of working on the house, there was a lot to be done and also I have a day job. We are ready to move in. It is there that I turn my attention to the garden. Since we have little kids and a dog, we want a fence to keep them safe from traffic on the main road. German law is very strict when it comes to fences and hedges. There are all kinds of complicated restrictions on the type of fence/hedge, the maximum height, etc. These rules change depending on who you share the border of your garden with, the street, the neighbor, agricultural land, etc. I'm not German, but I know they take their rules very seriously, so I decided to play by the book. Luckily, my father-in-law, FIL, is a retired surveyor who had been measuring for the municipality where we live, 40+ years of experience. Father-in-law tells me we need to go find the border stones, massive granite poles buried at every corner of the property. From there, we can connect them to get the borders. Father-in-law also pulls all official records and drawings using his contacts at the municipality. The property is over 100 years old, so there's lots of interesting stuff on who owned it before. As father-in-law and I are measuring with professional surveyor equipment, I am placing those red and white rods in the ground where the property line is. Father-in-law checked and double-checked with all drawings, but of course it turns out the cedar trees are about 1 meter on my property and not the other way around. As neighbor sees me planting the rods, he comes running out of his house yelling, "What the hell am I thinking, sticking things into the ground on his property?" Father-in-law tells N, in a very German way, where the property line is, shows him the border stones and explains the equipment and measurements, but neighbor is not having it. He knows where the property line is, where it always has been, and we were wrong. Father-in-law tells him that he is a pro that knows how to survey land and that he has never been wrong and that he is certainly not wrong now. Neighbor, feeling cornered, pivots and says that we have moved the border stones. Moving those stones is near impossible, they are heavy and go deep into the ground, and this would be a serious offense in Germany. Father-in-law tells neighbor to call the police, but that he better be ready to back up his claim with evidence or he would be in trouble. Neighbor runs off steaming. About a month later, I see a team of 3 people in safety vests and helmets surveying my property. It turns out N paid 4,000 to 5,000 euros, estimate from father-in-law, to get back at me. A week later, neighbor tells me in a soft, defeated voice that father-in-law was indeed right about where the line is, but that in all the years that he had lived there, he thought it was somewhere else. I tell neighbor that I understand and no problem, but that I need a fence real soon and that the cedar trees are in the way. He tells me those are his trees and I cannot touch them. Instead of just doing what I want with what are now my trees, I propose we team up, dig them out and move them to his property. I want peace with my neighbors. He tells me he doesn't want to do that because some of them might die when moved. I tell him I would be willing to split the costs of replacing any tree that dies during the move. He tells me no, and that he would be talking to his lawyer soon. What the hell? I decide I am officially done trying to appease the neighbor. 3 days later, I get a letter from Ann's lawyer telling me that the property line has been somewhere else for so long that it is now re-established. Of course, this does not apply to me because I had only recently bought the property. I get an attorney that writes a letter telling Ann to go pound sand. I immediately pulled out all the cedar trees and shredded them for compost. I put up a 2-meter high wooden fence and planted a hedge at the proper distance. It has been several years, the hedge is now 3 meters high and neighbors still won't talk to me. I have told the story around the neighborhood and nobody was surprised. They all told me neighbor is the most entitled individual they know. He's been trying to tell everyone what a horrible person I am for shredding his trees. And guys, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Lately, YouTube once again kind of forgets to recommend my videos to the right people in my audience, so I think a few star emojis and some likes would bring them back on the right track. Thank you so much in advance, it is really much appreciated. And the last one is a story from r/malicious compliance. It is titled, "Get my priorities straight? No problem." I always thought about this awful job I had and I just knew I had to have an MC story from it. Crazy how I never thought of it until now. So in 2018 I was a freshman in college and after being unemployed for a month I took a job at a major sports department store where they don't wear blue. And guys, if you can guess which store the OP is talking about, you get some virtual Ripe Star cookies in the mail. Anyway, so my store manager, who we will call Daniel, was a major phallus. He would make crude jokes that gets him reported to HQ, gossip about employees to other ones, and generally favor men over women, which I will explain. So I worked at this store for nearly a year and the turnover rate was abysmal. They would hire many people who were still in high school and expected them to devote 20 hours a week, which of course was not what they had signed up for, as many wanted about 12 to 15 hours since they were involved in extracurricular activities. However, Daniel showed no remorse and would often drive people to quit by either dropping their hours to less than 5 or hiking them up to 30, knowing that they couldn't work them, which often left us understaffed. The store was attached to a mall, so we got a lot of petty traffic that would turn into actual sales. However, due to the lack of training by Daniel and his poor oversight in appointing people to train new hires, the customer service in the store was failing dramatically, which halted sales, which led to a decrease in merchandising. The store was a $12 million store when I started, but had fell to $8 million in a few months because HQ was losing money by stocking a poorly managed store. Daniel took out his frustration on the staff, and here is where the malicious compliance starts. Daniel was on a good reviews crusade and often demanded us to comply with the customer even if they were dead wrong, just so they would leave a good review. I worked in footwear and there is nothing like the anger that arises when telling someone that the oh so popular shoe that they desire is out of stock in their size. Because a customer got upset with me over their size being out of stock, I was charged with cleaning the bathrooms. I never did this because, like the overachiever I am, I learned how to work in multiple departments without getting a raise. Thus, Daniel was a wee bit appreciative and never asked me to clean it. Now, I am easily disgusted. The mere thought of rotten food or bugs or anything I deem ungodly deplorable will get me dry heaving. I explained this to Danny Boy, but he replied with,
"Just get it done."
So me and Brent went to clean the men's bathroom since it was a two-person job, and might I mention that Brent's disgustometer is also not tolerant. We sprayed Febreze, took out the trash and ran out of there for our lives, leaving the dirtied mirrors, toilet paper floors and crap-stained walls untouched. I came in the next day and was told that I did an awful job and that I was never to clean the bathrooms again. So when Daniel asked me to do it a few weeks later, I reminded him of his instructions and we all watched in marvel as a manager cleaned it, which he said was a big deal since it was not in his job description, but yet it wasn't in any of ours either since he had told many of us that the store had janitors in our interviews. But that is just a mini malicious compliance. See, I had grown tired of Daniel in my waiting months at the store. Many of my friends had quit or found better jobs, the hires got worse and Daniel got much ruder. He attempted to show dominance at any chance he could and even forced a
"Do we have a problem here?"
convo with me when I didn't rush to change into the new company uniform that was not my size because I was helping a customer. Which then resulted in me getting chewed out because my
boobs were popping out
and my
figure was showing too much.
As a result of this medium butt t-shirt I was forced to wear. But Daniel committed to his paladin-esque crusade and denied us basic human rights in the spirit of good customer service. A pregnant co-worker with a doctor's note was denied a chair while working at the register. A co-worker with seething cramps was not allowed to go home though she couldn't stand, and another was barred from taking off to witness her daughter's prom send-off. But in contrast, a guy left his phone at home and he was allowed to not only get it, but take the rest of the day off. Another called in because of a hangover and was told to rest up and that he wouldn't receive a strike. And his favorite star boy was allowed to disappear often and be on his phone right in front of Daniel, and he did not even bat an eye. Even the men there obliged to the notion that they were treated far better than the female staff, and one day Daniel chose to single me out. Not to toot my own horn here, but I'm a hard-ass worker. And Daniel abused that by scheduling me my shifts in different departments and speed training me, knowing I would catch on quickly. I even had to train new employees, though I was not a lead, because I got good reviews and conducted the most footwear services last year. And after I demanded a raise, my $11 an hour, 35 to 45 hours a week summer paychecks were looking nice in spite of the horrible managing. However, school started up again and I informed Daniel that I needed to return to my somber 15-hour weeks that I had last semester. He said that I was lying and that he never gave me such little hours, till I hit him with a picture of the schedule that I had from March. He didn't like that chin tap and replied with,
I will see what I can do.
So next week I see the schedule and see that not only was I scheduled from 12 AM to 6 AM for inventory, but those also were my only hours. 6 effing hours. But I think, oh, they ain't doing you dirty, KV, this is obviously a mistake. So I seek out Danley the Manly and tell him of his mistake, and responds with,
That wasn't a mistake, you said you needed less hours.
KV, aka me, yes, but I cannot work past 10 because I have school and I just wanted to drop to about 15 to 20, which is more than I did last semester. Daniel,
well, everybody has to work inventory.
Me, but Lindy and Richie don't have it because they also have school. Plus Lindy, Richie and Michael all have more hours than me, but they are all in high school and just started working here. Daniel, noticing he's running out of excuses.
Well, they are more available than you, and we award availability. If you can free up some time, then maybe we can talk in a month, but you need to get your priorities straight.
You got it, dude. So as someone who takes disrespect with a pillar of salt, I considered quitting right then and there, but my anxiety kicked in and began to worry about cash flow, so I went home on my break and complained to my family, and my mom so eloquently expressed, just quit the damn job if you got this damn stressed. It ain't like you got a family to feed. So I took my single, no child having, empty-bellied ass up there and worked the last 2 hours of my shift. The air in the building hit different, knowing I wouldn't have to spend more time in it awake than I did my own home. I was calm, cleaned the footwear deck efficiently and made sure I was the last to clock out. As I approached Daniel at the exit, I said, so yeah, this will be my last day here. I got my priorities straight and school is my number one. I recently got an internship there and I will just go there because they are more accommodating to my needs as a student. Thanks for the time here, sucks that we couldn't work it out. And with that I watched his face turn white and he said something about not being able to work for the company again due to my lack of a 2 weeks notice. I didn't care, I was never going to work there again, and now every time I come to the mall and he happens to see me, he does not look me in the eyes, speak to me and rushes away from the counter so he doesn't have to ring me up. You got what you wanted, Dan. Edit, thank you for all the awards and upvotes. As I am writing this, the post just hit 2K. I'm glad a lot of you enjoyed the story. For some follow-up, Dan got flack for doing me wrong and my ex-team lead chewed him out for it. I'm still friendly with her to this day, and while the internship I went to did not last long, it helped me get the great one I have now. Edit 2, I was 18 at the time and just lucky to get out. I didn't know the highways and byways about reporting and such. I did write some reviews on Yelp and Glassdoor and whatnot, but I was just happy to move on. I do believe that both good and bad comes around via divine intervention, and I'm sure he got or is currently getting his ass whooped. And by the way guys, I kind of would be really surprised if this story took place in the United States, since from my point of view quite a few laws have been broken during the course of this story. The one that really caught my mind was the situation with the pregnant woman. Denying her reasonable accommodation, especially when that woman has a doctor's note, is really a huge red flag. If this would have been a revenge story, I would have really hoped that douchebag Daniel would have gotten what he deserved. However, this was a malicious compliance story, so usually no revenge is involved, unfortunately. And sadly, Ripe Stars, we have already reached the end of the video. However, as usual, if you cannot get enough of my videos, I would suggest you to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will show up very soon on the left side of the screen. In addition, please don't forget to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more exclusive Reddit content. Mainly, at least at the moment, just no mother-in-law videos. In addition, guys, I would just like to say we are super close to 50,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. It would be a dream come true to finally reach 50k. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.